Grandbois is the Executive Director of Sunset Area Victim Crisis Assistance and Referral Service, VCARS. She's worked for the programme for just over 5 years and has been employed as the ED for 3 years. Tanisha is actively involved in the Kenora Coalition to End Human Trafficking, holding the role of Vice Chair for a 2-year period until February of this year. She's a passionate victims advocate and is dedicated to making an impact in the lives of victims and survivors of crime. Welcome, Tanisha.
Wonderful, thank you, Sandra. Thank you all for having me here today. It's gonna take a minute to get loaded here.
That's what happened.
I just shut the door. Bear with me. Alrighty, so as Sandra had mentioned, oh, we're not up there. Bizarre.
The projector goes to sleep.
How do we wake them up?
Mike's got the magic fingers.
Okay.
Let's cap off, Mike.
It is. Well, I'm going to take the shortcut. So I don't-
Okay, we're gonna manually reboot. Well, that's doing that.
Take a second one up.
There we go.
Wonderful. Alrighty. Again, my name is Tanisha Grandbois. I am the Executive Director for Sunset Area Victim Services here in Kenora. We're also known as VCARS, so you may see that acronyms in places, and that is us. So first of all, I would want to take the opportunity to say thank you for having me today. Always great to have the opportunity to share what we do with community members and just draw a little bit of attention to a program that is very beneficial. So if there's any questions throughout, please feel free to write them down, ask afterwards, or raise your hand in between and go ahead and ask me then. So Sunset Area VCARS is a nonprofit organization. We're funded by the Ministry of the Attorney General, Victims and Vulnerable Persons Division. We were first incorporated in 2009 for the Kenora and Dryden area. And we are part of a greater umbrella called VCAO. As you will notice the brochures on your table, they are VCAO, and what that is Victim Crisis Assistance Ontario. So there's approximately 51 sites like ours across the province, sister sites, and we do work with one another in times when we are relocating an individual or that sort of thing. We'll work together to continue that support across the distance. So we are located in the Market Square building on the Matheson Street side, directly across from the KDSB building. Who do we help? All individuals 13 and up are eligible to access our services independently. We do assist children as well with the consent of a parent or a guardian. Some of the things that we assist with, it's a very large group of what we call circumstances, things like serious assault, sexual assaults or violence, domestic violence, homicide, sudden death, suicide, elder abuse, human trafficking, to the tragic circumstance side of things, which includes motor vehicle collisions, house fires, death by suicide, homelessness, disaster. Essentially, what I like to say is when someone's facing the most difficult days of their lives, that's when we're called in to just offer a little bit of assistance, some emotional support, kind of point people in the right direction and be there in their time of need. So our catchment area is quite large. We are from the Manitoba border all the way to Ignace, from Red Lake in Ear Falls all the way to Nestor Falls in Enigaming. So that's about 280,000 square kilometers. Direct services are provided face-to-face 24/7, 40 kilometers around Kenora and 50 kilometers around Dryden. If the individual is located outside of that, we will find a way to bring them a little bit closer or provide phone support or be resourceful in delivering services to that community from afar. If a client qualifies for VQRP funding, which I will get into later, VQRP is the Victim Quick Response Program. If they're eligible for that funding, we can again bring them closer to the community, bring them to Kenora, Dryden for safety. And then all of the communities within that are eligible for emotional and practical support. Again, face-to-face services, Kenora, Dryden, Dulles, Eagle Lake, Rat Portage, Vermilion Bay, Wabigoon, and Wash Bay. VQRP services and phone support extend to Ear Falls, Red Lake, Grassy Narrows, Ignace, Moonachie, Nestor Falls, Enigaming, Northwest Angle 33A and 37, Whitefish Bay, Shoal Lake 39 and 40, Sioux Narrows, Wabascang, and Wabsama. So I'm sure you're all informed, but what is crisis? So crisis can be very unique and independent to every individual. We like to classify it as an event or a situation that causes a person heightened or extreme stress or shock, and they're no longer able to rely on their normative coping skills to get them through that and get towards their normal level of functioning to move towards healing rather than crisis. Tragic circumstance, which you will hear me refer to throughout the presentation, is when an individual is faced with a situation that leaves them feeling vulnerable or as if they have no place to turn. So they're kind of stuck and they just need a little bit of help getting in the right direction. Again, crisis is individual to every person. What we do. So providing crisis assistance through emotional support, practical support, to victims of crime and tragic circumstance, immediate support with the goal of lessening the impact of trauma. So it is proven the quicker an individual receives support services in the aftermath of a crime or something traumatic, the less likely, the less deeply rooted that trauma may become in their life, the quicker they're linked to supports to move through things. So we provide referrals to long-term. So essentially, we're the first individuals that are called in after police and EMS. We would be dispatched to come in, and then we would do a needs assessment and determine what services are going to be best for that individual and how to refer them to long-term support services. We will continue to be there throughout that process if their needs change or they're no longer comfortable accessing a service that we've referred, and I'll move into more of that as well. And then we deliver the Victim Quick Response Program, which I think is the core of our program. It is used quite a bit, and it's very, very beneficial. So some of the things that we do, breaking down a little bit further, a lot of safety planning. So if an individual is fleeing a situation of domestic violence, maybe the accused in that situation has made bail and is now released in the community, and that individual is no longer safe. So we're going to work with them to develop an individual safety plan to encompass all of the things that may be of concern. So if they have children in school, going to work, going out in the community, we'll go to their home and walk around the property to determine, okay, there's a shovel out, can we put that somewhere else as it can be used to gain access to the home? Again, with the emotional support, that being one of the biggest things, we're there to empower, provide a non-judgmental approach, access to emergency funding, and everything that we do operates under client self-determination. So we are going to provide the options. It is up to that individual to decide what options they want to use, and then we will help them to navigate. So our program goals, I apologize, I talk really fast, I'm French, are to ensure that all clients receive the services that they need in their time of need. That we're honoring confidentiality and that we're respecting their rights to access services. Again, with the lessening the impact of trauma, that is one of our biggest goals. We want to make sure that everyone is heard and validated and that individuals are feeling safe and helping them navigate through the systems involved. So whether that be the court process, we can help them navigate that, making a statement with police, all of the things that are going to change, because we know it is always the victim's life that changes. Even if the accused is charged, they may get something like a no contact order, they may serve jail time, they might not. But it is always the victim that has to make these changes. It is unfair, but it is a reality that we have to deal with. And so we want to ensure that we're doing that the best way possible without disrupting things too much. Again, with the empowerment, and our number one is the emotional and physical safety of an individual. So as mentioned, we are a 24/7 operation. We used to operate with volunteers, and the crisis intervention volunteers would allow us to deliver services 24/7. 3 a.m. a call comes in from the hospital, we're there. We now operate with a team of crisis intervention coordinators, crisis intervention workers. So they work the after-hour shifts, and the office is open 8:30 to 4:30 with them picking up after hours so we can continue to streamline available services. So our crisis intervention workers, they receive training and then 40-hour standardized online training and 16 to 20 hours in-house training. We are lucky that the 2 of our 3 crisis intervention workers presently have their Masters of Social Work and have been in the field for many, many years and are phenomenal at what they do. How to access services. So, like mentioned, we can either receive a call from police dispatch after hours, phone, fax, email. We even have social media where we can make contact with individuals that don't have access to a phone, or self-referral. After hours, we have a call answering service. They would call into that office number and it is rolled over to call answering that dispatches the call accordingly. So here's where I'm going to break down the VCAO, so the Victim Crisis Assistance. That is the emotional support that everyone is eligible for, and the VQRP. The VQRP is the funding program, which has specific eligibility criteria that we determine. So VCAO includes the emotional practical support. By practical, that is things like making phone calls, working with insurance companies, bringing individuals to appointments. Anything, could be making a pot of craft dinner for their children. It's that practical support that when you are in crisis, you're not thinking of those things, and we're just there to kind of guide someone through that process. Follow-ups, we're going to continue to touch base with them and after the first 72 hours going forward to make sure that their needs haven't changed and that they're still feeling safe both emotionally and physically. Community referrals and resources. We strive to be up to date on all community resources available to individuals. As we know, programs are constantly changing. There's new things available at a rapid rate. So we really try to make sure that we're up to date on all of that information and that we're able to pass that on to our clients. Emotional support. So validating, listening, confidentiality in a safe place. Empathetic approach, compassion, and above all, patience. Practical support, like I mentioned, making phone calls, working with police, transportation, advocacy, completing paperwork, referrals. So that's where we do the needs assessment. We will suggest all available options, and then we will pass that along to our clients and make the referrals from there. Tragic circumstance. So tragic circumstances actually make up over 50% of our clients in a year. Tragic circumstance clients are not funded by the Ontario government, so we rely heavily on donations and fundraising to be able to assist with things like house fire, collision, suicide, sudden death in our community. We're very resourceful in working with local church groups, different organizations, Salvation Army, those types of things to get the items that we need for individuals, but the government does not yet fund our tragic circumstance clients. So based on need and situation, we have to make a decision to allocate funds to assist a client, which is really heartbreaking. I don't believe that's me.
It's not.
Okay, sorry, I have that ringtone. And I wake up to it at 3 a.m. a lot, so. So we have to make that decision, and that's a tough call, right? When you're looking at limited funds to say, we can do this time, but maybe not next time, we're getting close to year end, those types of things. All of those clients are still eligible for emotional support and referrals. We work very, very hard, and we are very resourceful to ensure that these individuals are getting what they need. VQRP funding. So funding for the Victim Quick Response Program, like I said, has specific eligibility criteria. They need to be crimes defined by the Criminal Code of Canada. These are immediate funds. And I'm going to get into what we do with these funds, but essentially we put them out and then are reimbursed by the government. We need to advocate and put in applications to say why this individual needed these funds to be safe, those types of things. And it can be accessed multiple times with the same individual. So for instance, domestic violence. Oftentimes we see reoccurring domestic violence where they're continuing to go back to the relationship for all sorts of reasons. They can continue to access the program based on new occurrence of domestic violence. So through VQRP, we provide things like safe accommodation. If the accused is at large and it's not safe to stay home, if the door's been broken down, it's not safe to stay home, we can put them either in a hotel or transport them out of town to be somewhere else, a women's shelter in town. Transportation, so we've had people flee as far as the Maritimes to be with family, and we can fund that. Meals, personal care items, things like emergency home safety expenses. This one's really unique, so if windows are broken, locks are tampered with, or even if they're not sure if the accused has access to a key, we can rekey, we can make sure that that home is safe again. Funeral expenses for homicide, there's up to $5,000 towards the hard cost of the funeral to assist the family. Crime scene cleanup is available as well. Emergency cell phone, so if the individual is at risk of re-victimization, again going back to the accused is at large and they need a cell phone for safety, we can put that in place. Emergency vision care for things like glasses, private counseling, and the list goes on. So the government has broken down the needs of an individual in the aftermath of a crime, and they have made certain categories in which we can advocate on behalf of our clients to supply them with the things that they need without a financial burden. Eligible crimes for VQRP include domestic violence, sexual assault, homicides, hate crimes, human trafficking, serious assault, and attempted murder. Other criteria, I know this is very boring, so I'll go over it quickly, bear with me. It's available to people 45 days after the occurrence date. We can, however, apply for a special circumstance if something fits outside of that criteria and try and advocate and make them understand why we needed to expense these. Only 3 of them require police involvement or a report to police. So that is the the serious assault, the human trafficking, and there is a child abuse in there, has to be reported to the police. All of the other crimes within this need to be reported to any other community organization. So the Women's Shelter could make contact with us, Ontario Native Women's Association, things like that. The biggest thing is that the individual resides in the province of Ontario and that the funds stay in the province of Ontario. I'm just going to skip through that. Accommodations, again, for safety reasons, oftentimes we want to keep a family together. So there may be a situation of domestic violence where the female is the perpetrator and it's dad and the kids and they have nowhere to go. Well, they can't go to the women's shelter. We don't want to separate the family, we want to keep them together. Other times there may be a family with a 16-year-old son that's not able to go to the shelter with them. So rather than splitting them up, we can keep them together by putting them in a hotel for a few days until we can figure out alternative. Again, broken windows, things like that, or a common one if the home is under investigation. So oftentimes the police will inform us that for various reasons the home is under investigation and the individuals can't go back home. That process usually takes about 3 to 5 days, keeping in mind that these individuals do not have access to anything from their home in that time. Toothbrush, clothes, all of that. Those things we're able to supply. Transportation, so to safety with family and friends, shelter or hotel, to medical appointments for injuries related, transportation of a body for autopsy, and ambulance transportation. So again, we're very resourceful. We will work bus, taxi, gas cards. We can fill up the car. It's very flexible that way in terms of funding and providing that access to transportation dollars. Home safety repairs, replacing locks and deadbolts. Here you will see a little white alarm there. We call those contact alarms. Oftentimes, those are supplied as a way to give peace of mind to the family. It will alert them if that door is opened or window is opened in the middle of the night. Home safety inspections, we will board broken windows, rekey locks. Sometimes we can even put in motion censored floodlights if they're in a rural area. Crime scene cleanup, so a maximum of $1,500 towards the cleanup of a crime scene where bodily fluids are present. Meals and personal care. Funeral expenses, again, that's the $5,000 towards the cost of a funeral. Cell phones, emergency vision care, and private counseling, so up to $1,500 towards that. So partnership, we rely very heavily on our partnership. We understand that no one organization can do it alone, that we all have different mandates and objectives and different ways that we can help individuals. We also recognize that people's needs are very, very complex, and so we need to work with others in order to ensure holistic services to our clients. So these are, just in a nutshell, some of the organizations that we partner with. The list continues. So we're ensuring all of our clients are receiving the assistance they require. We also can tap into the expertise and suggestions of other agencies. We working together to achieve larger outcomes for the individuals that we're working with. We can share in costs and support clients through collaboration and increase statistics to sustain programs. So partnership examples. So these are I just wanted to break it down a little bit further. So oftentimes we'll partner with places like Ontario Works. They have different things like subsidies and startup funds and emergency fundings for individuals leaving an abusive situation. So where we're able to provide the immediate need, they can go on further to, be able to provide housing or a long-term solution. Salvation Army, Women's Place to secure furniture, household items, clothings for families starting over. We partner a lot with Red Cross and local churches to provide a longer stay in hotels after things like house fire and disaster. Partner with nonprofit housing for safety repairs in the unit. So what we can do, rather than have somebody go in, the housing can assign their maintenance people and we can front the bill. again, going back to the 50 other programs like ours, we partner with them quite a bit. So for instance, if we're having an individual travel to Thunder Bay, we want to make sure that that care is continued. So in Thunder Bay Victim Services would say pick them up at the bus depot. Or now we have Casper Van Lines, pick them up there and continue on. Now say they're going on to Toronto, someone in Toronto would meet them, and so that support continues. Yeah, so that essentially is us in a nutshell. But essentially, like I said, we're there on the worst days of people's lives. We come in when they have nowhere to turn and don't know what to do, and it's very rewarding work. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask now, or I have left my business cards on the tables if you have any questions about anything going forward.
How many clients do you have active right now?
Active right now, there's probably about 25 cases. So that may not seem like a lot. Well, when you're thinking we can either be spending 72 hours working with a client, or we can have clients for up to 2 years, right? Where those cases are never really closed. They continue to be open. It is our goal to have cases closed. But right now, if I think about the active files, there's probably about 25, 30. Yeah.
What's the human trafficking situation here in Northwestern Ontario?
In Northwestern Ontario. So it looks very different than what you would think. So the question was about human trafficking. It's not a Liam Neeson movie. It looks very different. In Northwestern Ontario, it actually, we're finding that it can disguise as domestic violence. So where it looks like they're in a relationship, but it's not quite that way. A lot of it is drug related. We're seeing a lot of crystal meth and gang involvement with human trafficking, which just furthers, the fear and the aspect of why they stay. Yeah, so it's real, it's out there. We're probably getting in a month, I would say five human trafficking cases, which when you think about it, we're going Kenora, small town, Northwestern Ontario, we're not Toronto. It's real and it's happening, and those are only the cases that are coming forward. With the Ontario strategy to end human trafficking, there has been more awareness, things like the Kenora Coalition to End Human Trafficking, there's just been more talk of it. And so more and more people are coming forward, but it is out there and it is continuing to happen. And it's, hidden in a small town. Hopefully that answers, but if you ever want to discuss it further, I have tons of information on that. Yeah. Alrighty.